economic condition that we're not supposed to talk about is coming soon. Stagflation. Last year I did 2 videos and I talked specifically about this topic, how the gang that couldn't shoot straight, known as the US government, was going to run this economy into a stagflationary period of time. I'll link those videos down below. You're gonna see when I get done with this video why we're close, if not there already. Stagflation, just to back up a step and explain to everybody, is an abnormal, an artificial economic condition. It's not a traditional, normal economic condition. It only occurs as a result of a giant clusterfuck. And what happens is the government has done the wrong things at the wrong time and put us in a bad position to get stagflation. Now, stagflation is a situation where inflation is high, unemployment is high, and economic activity is low or at least flat. It has happened in this economy, in the United States economy, at least one time previously. Stagflation is, once again, it's artificial. It's created. It's not a normal Keynesian type economic thing that happens. It's created because of these mistakes, but it happened from 1973 all the way to 1982, 10-year period of time. It was a horrible period for our economy during that period of time. Everybody had a hard time. It was universally, globally, it was a messed up deal. The rich had a hard time. The poor had a worse time. The middle class dove into the lower class. It was a really bad situation. And it got so bad at one point, interest rates, believe it or not, for mortgages were 22 to 24%. It was that bad. It drove a couple of presidents basically out of office. And if you read some of this stuff, you study the history, you're going to see people who actually will tell you, oh, it's not real. It's just an imaginary thing. It never happened. It happened. I was alive during part of that period of time, during the whole period of time, and I saw what happened. And a lot of you who are viewing this remember those periods of time. We're going to be there soon. What's caused this? Who's responsible? Who's to blame? Well, basically the US government and the Federal Reserve, primarily the Federal Reserve, because of the way, in my opinion, they've handled this inflationary thing. They got late to the party, they came drunk, they drank more, and everybody left, and they're still doing more of the damage to the party house. And they've done that by raising interest rates too little and too late, and they continue to do it now beyond where it's wise to do that. The economy is fighting back. All of us out there fighting back. The stock market is giving the finger to the Federal Reserve, and everybody is trying to fight this thing. But at some point in time, I think this is an inevitable conclusion because a couple of things. The government has signaled their hand, the Federal Reserve, and they've said, listen, we need to have between 8 and 10 million more people unemployed. We've got to increase the unemployment in order to dampen the demand for supplies and goods so that inflation comes down. And number 2, when the Dallas Federal Reserve let a leak, I guess, come out in some of their notes, I believe it was last week, where they actually said that we need a 20% correction in the housing market. In other words, prices of a house that are $200,000 today need to be $160,000. They need to force that down. Now, can they do that? Sure. You jack the interest rates up like Jimmy Carter did to 22%, and you will flatten the last man standing, so to speak, great economy that we've got going, sub-economy, the housing market. The rest of the economy is trying to plug along and trying to do the thing, and everybody's trying to hire and do things, but there's going to be some disincentives. I mean, if you study this stuff from the dark web like I do, there's rumors out there the government's going to start imposing penalties on people when they hire people. Businesses that hire people, there'll be a fee you have to pay to help reduce that employment level, get that down. Their only solution to solving inflation, according to them being the Federal Reserve and their cohorts, is to basically crash the economy. And they think that inflation is so bad. I don't know where these guys were in 73 to 82, but stagflation is much worse than inflation. A recession is not even as bad as a stagflationary period. Stagflation is the worst you can get. And yet they're insisting that inflation is the worst thing that could happen. And we'll have to do anything as the government to be able to tamp down demand, increase unemployment, and drop that thing back to this artificial 2%. These guys are using a playbook from 1923, not 2023. It's a 100-year-old playbook, and they're still saying 2% is the enemy. We got to be below 2% inflation, or the fit hits the shan and someone has to stay after school for detention. That's crazy. 2% is just an artificial number. We could live with 3, 5. We're currently at 6%. Doesn't matter. As we've talked in previous videos, there's lots of workarounds. There's lots of ways that people get around inflation by just changing their buying patterns slightly, switching products from name brands to generics, things like that, that allow all of us to survive. Maybe not the same level that we were previous to higher inflation, but adequately enough. You know, people aren't en masse starving. There's not rioting in the streets as a result of this stuff, but there will be once you get to a stagflationary period, because all the economy dives at the same time. Everything crashes. There are now 3 ways to, if we get to that point, there's going to be 3 things you can do to save yourself and to save your investments. And once again, I recommend my main adage, this thing I learned from my dad, my grandfather, number 1, cash is king. Cash is always king. So preserve cash now, and then when you get to this kind of period of time, you can buy one of 3 things to preserve your money. Real estate has always intrinsic value. There's always a piece of real estate there. There's a house there. It's not like a stock which can go to 0. You got nothing. There's still going to be a house. There's going to be a value. You can live in it. You can do something in it, that kind of thing. Number 2, you can buy commodities, and primarily agricultural commodities, because when the economy goes down, people get depressed. When people get depressed, they eat and drink more. And where does the food and drink come from? It comes from the agricultural business. So that's why I've always hedged my bet, because I have farming and I have real estate, and these 2 counter each other. You know, the real estate's good, the farming may not be as good. When the farming's great, the real estate's not good. So that's a good hedge. And the third thing, it would be precious metals. And I don't know too much about that. I've had friends that have done well in that business, buying gold and silver and keeping it. But those are good hedges against stagflationary period. But keep in mind that there is very little we can do other than protest, other than write our congressman, other than put pressure on the president. In theory, the Federal Reserve can't be pressured for anything, but nonetheless, we can make our dissatisfaction with the way that the economy is being handled, or more likely mishandled, by telling somebody, by making some sense out of this stuff, and going to your elected officials and trying to press them to say, listen, we don't want this to happen. We don't care about inflation. We don't want a recession. And we certainly don't want stagflation. So that's the big S word for today. Stay away from it, but keep your eyes open, because it is coming. Okay, thank you for watching. If you get a minute, I would love to hear your comments about what you think of these videos. Feel free also to put in any topics down here in the comment section, things that you'd like to hear me discuss. Any questions you want, go ahead and put in here. We'll make sure we get a video on it when we get time. And as always, please like and subscribe. Hit that ring the bell button as well to get notified every time there is a new video. Thanks a lot, everybody.